Hey guys, Mystical Storms here with part two of, part two of, he tried. Um, I took somebody's suggestion of drinking water before, and I might be drinking some in between, so I'll probably pause, drink some water, and then turn it back on. Because I unintentionally smack my lips and mouth because it gets dry easily, especially because I vape, so that causes issues. But also, if you haven't watched the first episode, please go do that. There's the warnings also in the description this time. I won't be repeating all of them since I said them in the first one. I might repeat them after a few more episodes in case somebody pops out of nowhere and just let me just watch a random one. But I'll put them usually inside the description. I'll tell you I'll put it in the description. Also, like always, the fanfic is in the description and also the fan art. So, what was I gonna say? Well, with all that said, let's get started. Also, sorry about background noise. I try my best, but I can't control background noise, sadly. Izuku didn't know how he got himself in this situation, but somehow he was being escorted by Eraserhead home because, quote, a kid who took joy in dangling over the side of a building couldn't be trusted to walk home alone safely at midnight, end quote. Ridiculous. But then again, he was good at getting himself in an inconvenient situation. Eraserhead was just too overdramatic. Izuku had called him on it, but the hero didn't budge and just pulled him away from the edge and raised his eyebrow at him. He felt like a kid being scolded for breaking something, but he nodded and went along with it. There was no need to worry the hero needlessly. What's your name? He lets go of his capture weapon, glancing at the can of soda in Izuku's hand, most likely to check if it wasn't drinking anything he shouldn't be. Izuku smirked. Eraserhead was lucky he caught him on his good day. Why? Gonna rat me out to my parents? Izuku smiled, although that wouldn't work because his parents were non-existent. Well, his mom was. His dad didn't care for that matter to even show up. He just sent money enough to pay the apartment and have some leftover for food. But that was it. No mom or dad to pay attention to what shit Izuku got himself into. However, the food money seemed to decline every month bit by bit. You want me to? Eraserhead glanced at him, getting the door that leads to the staircase inside the building. Eraserhead pushed the door open with more force than one would think it needed. The door was awfully rusty. Izuku noted the tremble in his hands. Maybe the hero was injured. But the door was open and Eraserhead was staring at him expectantly. Right. Ah, Izuku mumbled. Following the hero down or front as the hero didn't step inside until Izuku was halfway down the first flight. Cautious much? Though he couldn't blame the hero. He wouldn't be the first one Izuku accidentally traumatized with his ability not to perish into the land of no living. So, name? He joined Izuku as they leisurely walked down. Izuku took over the top sip and sound echoing in the halls. Will you give me yours if I answer? Izuku glanced at the hero. It was a gamble, but good enough, despite all the sense in his head telling him to get the fuck away from the hero. Whatever. Sure. Izuku almost choked on his soda. Okay, it was weird. Izuku briefly remembered that he wasn't wearing his Akatani disguise and wasn't the wanted criminal, vigilante, villain, whatever he was. He was just a random teenage boy that the hero was worried about. Definitely weird, but highly entertaining if you had to be honest. It's Izuku. Eraserhead nodded. I'm Shouta Aizawa. You reached the end of the stairs. Eraserhead, Aizawa. Forcing the door open again. Man, someone should take care of these doors for once. Both here and on the roof. He talked to All Might that the doors were either working too well, meaning they weren't locked at all, and someone could wander to the roof and jump, someone being Izuku, or didn't work at all at the point that pro heroes couldn't pickpocket them open and had to use brute force. What if there was an apartment on fire and they need to evacuate? What then? Where's the attention to safety? Where to, kid? Aizawa blinked at him as if he heard a mini rant going off inside Izuku's head, and he briefly wondered if he had indeed said it out loud. Pressing a can to his lips, he gestured to head to the left. He licked at his lips, hoping to keep his muttering at bay around a hero in both of his forms. It'd do no good to tell the hero all about his darkest secrets. Aizawa took off, Izuku scurrying after him. It was 20-minute walk, 20 minutes in Izuku's opinion. He briefly wondered how badly he'd make the hero worry about him if he let that thought slide. That decided to fill the silence with some random questions instead. So, Eraserhead, how's patrol? Izuku watched as the hero took it upon himself to check their surroundings every few meters. Perhaps a habit. Well, he was still on duty. Silly duty to take a kid home. Nothing exciting beside a problem child standing too close to an edge of a roof and giving off the wrong impression with that, Izuku pointedly ignored the little hiccup at the nickname of a problem child and clicked his tongue. For your information, if we're noticed, shall we meet again? I, for one, wasn't trying to jump. Izuku laughed to himself. Aizawa raised his eyebrow, definitely not amused as Izuku continued. To waste such a good soda bought with the last of my money would be a crime in society. At least to my weeping wallet. He dangled the can that was almost emptied from the hero and took a big sip once again, exaggerating the sound. Aizawa pinched his nose briefly. Oh, this was certainly entertaining. Just don't hang out of the roof next time. Someone might come and push you instead of trying to help you. Huh, what a joke. He'd be the first one to push himself. Won't be the first time. Izuku sighed, stopping to hear looking at him with a certain look in his eyes and he couldn't place. Kid. Aizawa stared and Izuku realized mortified that he said it out loud. He knew that not everyone appreciated dumb suicide jokes, especially from the kid who couldn't off himself as he wished. He forgot to keep track of his tongue so much for not making others worry about him. Wait, no, forget I said that. Izuku took the last sip of the cap and walked faster ahead, taking a turn glancing up to see his apartment complex in view. Maybe he could lose the hero here. Kid, Aizawa caught up to him, placing his hand on his shoulder. Izuku stopped fidgeting with the can in his hands. Who was he thinking going with Eraserhead home? What was he thinking telling the hero all about his issues as if the hero cared? There was no use to it. No need to put a target on his back as a civilian. It would only make this harder. But Aizawa recognized him, and now when they next time would he realize he was Yami and forget all about the pity in his eyes and decide the only place he belongs was the prison? Izuku wanted to run away, to leave Eraserhead in the dust, wondering what was wrong with him. It would raise a lot of flags in a hero's mind, but God did he want to leave. He wasn't good with people showing worry and concern, especially not adults. So he just stared at his trembling hands, hoping Aizawa could forget about this. And go back to his patrol or something. Whatever the hero did, he wouldn't know. Want another one? Izuku jumped as Aizawa tapped the can in his hands and nodded to the store they just passed. Reluctantly, Izuku nodded and watched as the hero turned turned to the store, giving him a look that told, "Stay there." Izuku had half the mind to run, but decided and threw the empty one out, hearing the loud click in the dead night. Aizawa returned 2 minutes later holding 2 cans, 1 soda and 1 cold coffee, as well as a sandwich. Same sandwich Izuku lost to Eraserhead. Funny. He extended the soda and sandwich towards Izuku, who took both of the items, staring at them. "Figured you might be hungry," he said, cracking his coffee open and taking a long sip. Izuku gripped the sandwich in his hand. He hadn't eaten in a few hours, that's true. He could get some of those nutrition inside his body, especially when his fridge had been hauntingly empty for the past 2 weeks. Money really was an issue, I guess, he mumbled as he took to walking once again. Silence filled with chewing coming from Izuku and the occasional sip from Aizawa as they reached the apartment Izuku lived in. He gulped the last of his sandwich and glancing at Aizawa. "Well, that's my building. Thanks, you can go back to your hero thingy, you know." Izuku cringed at the way his voice cracked. When had he acted like this? No less in front of a hero. Dabi would make fun of him right now, and not let him live it down. Yami was never so meek and silent. Izuku sighed, taking a step towards his house, but Izuku was, and he was Izuku. Yami was just a hobby, nothing more, nothing he could fall back to. In the end, he was always Izuku, meek, weak, and lonely. "I'll lead you to your apartment." Izuku cringed. "Great," he nodded, deciding it wasn't worth fighting the hero knowing his apartment. It would only make Aizawa suspicious, and if he wasn't already with the way Izuku acted. They took the flight of stairs as the elevator was out of order and approached the 5th floor. Izuku grabbed his keys from his pockets, fumbled them a second before turning to Aizawa, who nodded at him. "Stay safe," he said, turn around. Izuku stared at him, watching him clamber down the stairs. Izuku took a deep breath, unlocked the door, and he let out the soft, "I'm home," despite no one being home to greet him. He dropped the shoes by the door, and he slipped in his slippers, staggering to the living room couch and dropping into it face first. He felt the metal of the can under his arm and the plastic of his eaten sandwich crunch between his chest and couch. He groaned loudly, digging his hand into the plush of the couch. He felt tears welling in his eye. Was this all right to be on Aizawa's radar? Wouldn't it come to bite him in the ass? It always had. Whenever he chose to trust someone, choose to believe that he was worth something, it always came back in the worst ways possible. Who was to say it wouldn't happen this time too? But Aizawa could do. But what Aizawa could do to. Who was to say it wouldn't happen this time too? But Aizawa could do to him that he hadn't done himself. Izuku stared at the side of his couch, sighed, and got up and took a shower. Murmurs of his mind telling him that Aizawa could give him a home drowned under the cold water. Izuku or Yami stumbled into Dabi's apartment, hissing as it hit his side as he hit the side of the doorknob, swinging the door shut. He rubbed his eyes, itching from his contact lenses. He really needed to get new ones as soon as possible. "Where have you been?" Izuku threw his head back on the couch, looking at Izuku upside down. "Do you want a long or short version of my past few days of misery and happiness?" He rubbed his eyes harder, staggering to the couch and plopping down. God did they itch. "Don't rub your eyes, Yami. And short, please. I haven't slept, and as much as your life amuses me right now, I just want peace and quiet." Izuku sorted pointedly, ignoring Dabi's comment about rubbing his eyes, and continued to do it anyway. Soon sparks and weird shapes appeared in his vision, and then finally let go. "If you wanted peace and quiet, you shouldn't have agreed to let me come over. You know how that always ends. One of us is always running away from the cops. Dabi groans, throwing his hands over his eyes. Izuku hummed as he noticed a scar on his right hand and extended near his knuckles from the last time he had seen him. Both know that your ass runs away more often than mine, Dabi told, amused. At least I can run. Izuku scooted away from Dabi's incoming attack, snorting as Dabi threw his pillow instead. He caught it, setting it beside his head and sinking into the couch with a satisfied sigh. So, you're weak? Dabi glanced at him, standing up and walking to the fridge. He opened it, pulling out a can of beer, looking at Izuku with his eyebrow raised in question. He shook his head. School night. No, can't do. You're no fun, Yami. Dabi shut the fridge, popping his can open, settling on the couch again. Izuku watched him take a sip and let out a loud, satisfied sound, most likely pointing out what a good treat he had missed. Izuku twirled his mask in his hands, throwing his leg on the couch and leaning, settled in the pillow. I met a few heroes, he said, gaining Dabi's attention. Heroes were always interesting topics between them, especially Endeavor, to Izuku's amusement. He had a few theories about why, but he never brought them up, for the fear of angering him. Angry Dabi could be quite terrifying. Which one? Some low-ranked ones, then Eraserhead again. Dabi snorted. Dabi snorted, saying he was an Eraserhead magnet. Izuku nodded along. And All Might. Dabi choked on his drink, sputtering, trying not to get beer on his couch that he valued too much despite its ratty look. Izuku had told him to get rid of it a long time ago, but the guy was too attached to it. All Might? Dabi rasped out, clearing his throat, looking at Izuku like he had grown two heads, like Azami, or he gestured meaning to say Izuku's civilian identity. Dabi didn't know of his civilian name or life, just a few random facts, not that Izuku knew about Dabi much as well. It was a mutual agreement to just not ask. Safer too. Not as Yami, no, but it was after school, he mumbled, not diving too deep into details. He was sure the whole Bakugo fight was broadcasted, and if Dabi was smart enough, he would put two and two together. Not that Izuku entirely minded if Dabi knew of his civilian identity, he just didn't want to slip up so easily. There was no drama behind it, and, well, sometimes he was afraid Dabi would throw him aside if he happened to find out. And what happened? Dabi calmed down from choking on a beer. Besides, best way to go is if one had to ask Izuku. Nothing much, just saved me from being choked to death, talked to me, left me alone. Izuku left out many parts of their meeting, many parts, just like giving Izuku's secret power that people would kill him for or to know about. Yeah, it wasn't that important. Played damsel in distress? Dabi grinned. Izuku kicked his leg, trying to nail Dabi's side, but somewhere caught his can of beer, splishing it everywhere instead. Dabi shrieked, crying out for his beer, and Izuku laughed, shaking his leg like they got caught in the spill and now smelled like shitty store-bought beer. You'll pay for that, Yami. Dabi squeaked out, setting his can of beer and lunging for the younger teen. Izuku shrieked, getting from the couch and running. If you can work your chicken legs fast enough, he called back, slipping on his mask and rushing out the apartment. This was fun. Izuku smiled underneath his mask. This is what he loved. Izuku ran his hand through his damp hair, fingers coming slightly back, the leftover temporary dye not having come completely out. He's likely getting that shit out of his hair because it was never fully successful and darkened his already darkish hair more, though he was grateful to have gotten darker hair than than his mom. Otherwise, the whole dyeing his hair black at night and washing it out afterwards wouldn't have ended well. At least until he found a better option, a better solution. Store-bought temporary dye or spray were never good, but they weren't bad either. The only thing he needed to avoid was rain, because the first time he didn't notice the pain running down his neck, and he was kicking down a guy who almost got caught by the police force. His dark green hair was too big of a giveaway for him to feel comfortable. That's where the black hair came into play, and not to mention that the fake name he used as a disguise suited it perfectly. He never knew the boy, but he heard what happened. Same fate really. Izuku could have been another boy who died of suicide easily. He tried but didn't succeed, in a cruel twist of fate. Shaking his head off of any leftover droplets in his hair as he walked out of his apartment building. It was late, and had gotten back from a job with Dabi about an hour ago. Showered, grabbed a bite of whatever he could find in the fridge, and went out on the streets again. He knew he wouldn't be able to sleep tonight, so it was futile to try and pretend he could get some rest and clear his mind. Wouldn't shut up about everything that happened today. Kachan, All Might, Eraserhead to follow. Only a week since then, and yet he couldn't stop thinking about it. At school, he was ridiculed for trying to help Kachan, though Kachan seemed oddly silent and hadn't thrown a punch his way since then. Izuku was really glad, but it was so unusual he was thrown off. He was used to the daily taunt, punches, and kicks. It felt almost as if the world was breaking apart when nothing of the sort came his way. Not that the rest of the class stopped bullying him suddenly. It's a dream never to be reached. But without Kachan at the head of the pack, they had laid down a bit, only for a bit though. Maybe that made him a bit more reckless that night, wishing for some kind of physical affirmation that he was still there. Remind him that he's not actually dead as he wished to be. Whatever that meant. Kick back his sense into working, reminding him that he was living and breathing. That's how Izuku ended up helping a woman get out of the grasp of a stupid molester who screamed and punched him until Izuku pulled out his knife and stabbed the man in the thigh. The man screamed profanities at him and took him by the neck. Izuku cursed, being pushed against the wall, unable to breathe properly. Pulling his knife back once again and aimed for the man's shoulder. "Hey, old man, can you drop that guy for me, please?" The guy in front of him briefly turned to the side, letting out a sound that told everyone how offended he was to be interrupted, only to freeze as he did so. His mouth fell slack, his face relaxing, his eyes going white. "Release the boy," the other voice said, and the man complied, eyes unfocused and his body going limp. Izuku jumped to his feet as he'd been dropped to the ground. His skull ached, and he had almost scratched it against the wall. "A quirk? Now, turn around into the wall." Izuku watched as the man runs into the wall as if it was first place in a marathon. There was only 10 meters left to finish. The guy knocked himself out immediately. The woman had fallen to the ground through the whole ordeal, whimpered, got up, and ran away. Izuku scoffed and didn't even say thank you. He sighed, rubbing his neck. God, that hurt. He looked at the side to see the other guy watching him intently. "Hey," he said, his shocking purple hair catching Izuku's attention. He'd never seen this guy around. He knew everyone in the streets, new or old. It was practically his job to do so. "Hey," Izuku rasped out, wincing about how fucked his voice sounded. Okay, maybe that guy had a better chokehold on him than he imagined. The guy winced, walking closer to him. "You okay?" he asked, watching Izuku grab the knocked out guy and pull the knife out of his shoulder. Izuku sighed, cleaning the blood from the guy's shirt. He would rather not get his hoodie dirty. "Never been better." Izuku looked at the purple guy. "And you?" The guy raised his eyebrow, nodding his head. He seemed young. Maybe they were around the same age, but nowadays can be deceiving. Izuku hoped it wasn't some 10-year-old looking like they just started high school. Great. Izuku hummed. I'll go. Thanks for your help out there. He passed the guy, patting his shoulder. He was rather curious about who the guy was, but he wasn't Yami right now, and he was just Izuku, and Izuku was a normal teenager who liked to take late night strolls and not get into too much trouble. Now that Eraserhead had taken notice of him, he'd rather not cause much ruckus than needed. He could keep tabs on a guy when he was in disguise anyway. Who knew, maybe it was just one-time thing for the guy. What's your name? The guy asked instead, turning around following him. Izuku closed his eyes for a brief moment, and he looked at the guy. The boy, whatever, he cocked his head, definitely not someone who took the streets. No one who asked his name outright. Not like this anyway. Why? He asked, giving the guy an answer. Why not? Okay, maybe the guy had a valid point. His voice was obviously laced with sarcasm, and Izuku could vibe with that, maybe just a tiny bit. Izuku watched and stared at the guy, who took one step behind him. He narrowed his eyes, looking the guy up and down. His stance clearly told him he'd never done shit like this, nor did he get into fights or anything. He didn't look confident, nor really defensive like one would be familiar with street life. He just looked average, with dark bags under his eyes. Totally screamed, "Insomnia is my friend," and his hair was just crazy, which was kind of cool, to be honest. See? Vibe. Izuku was giving in. This guy ran his hand through his hair, looking at him patiently. Izuku gave in. I'll give you mine if you give me yours. Some part of him told him he was making a mistake, but what the heck? It's not like he didn't do that on a daily. His life was one big mistake anyway. Shinzo Hitoshi, he mumbled, running one hand over his neck, nervous or awkward or both. Izuku could relate to that quite a lot. Izuku Midoriya, he greeted, extended his hand, and the guy looked at it for a few seconds and nodded himself, giving it a clap. They stood in silence for a few seconds before Izuku turned and started walking home once again. The guy took a moment to gather his bearings, but followed him soon after. This time, instead of walking slightly behind him, Shinzo took the place by Izuku's left. It felt nice. Izuku didn't really have friends to walk with. Dabi was a friend, sure, but he didn't have any chance to stroll at night like this, side by side. It was always look out for the bad guy, or look out for the cops on the run half of the time, or jumping along rooftops, hoping the next step isn't going to be sure to fall down a building. Izuku rather not repeat the first time he jumped from one roof to another. He just misjudged his step and fell down. Dabi had freaked out so badly, but it was all good, just a few broken bones. He didn't even die. Like, fake die or whatever. But this, walking with a stranger, is just met who seemed to be around the same age as him, taller with wide, dark eyes under his eyes rivaling Eraserheads. Yeah, no, that was new. But nice. He didn't have friends, but it seemed good enough. It was sad and pitiful. Most definitely, but Izuku had long gone stopped thinking about that. Thinking about what other think. Or at least he thought that he had, but then All Might came and his words were thrown around its axis again. Despite that, he didn't really dwell on stuff about what his peers said on how inept he was socially and how dysfunctional were his relationships. No mother, no father, no friends or family. At some point, it just flew over his head and he hadn't tried to correct anyone. It wasn't his job to anyway. I was wondering. The guy put his hands in his pocket as Izuku briefly hummed, glancing at him. Izuku's eyes looked on the bandage on his left arm. What's a quirk? Izuku raised his eyebrow. Were people his age always like this? Quirk this, quirk that. Okay, Izuku was guilty of that as well, but his countless notebooks filled with quirks on every hero villain around, proof of his obsession, so to speak, but he didn't do it silently, or, well, he thought he did because meddling was an issue he should correct but never bothered to. And yet, We're all teenagers, the fourth generation filled with people who ask about quirks first, then everything else second. As if the only identity of a human could have. He understood at some degree quirks were unique, and maybe some repeated, like fire quirks for example, but then again, they were so vastly different as well. Each user, same type of quirk, still had some unique to them for something as simple as heat output and color or even atomic structure. Izuku just felt a tiny bit disappointed that the guy wasn't any different from others, although he didn't really have high hopes for anything anymore. He stopped having those at some point. But Shinzo continued before he could answer, because I saw you fighting and didn't notice anything. I just was wondering if you have a healing quirk. Izuku slipped, but that shut Shinzo quickly. He thought about it and nodded. Seems useful. Izuku snorted. Yeah, useful in one way to say. Izuku threw him a look. Izuku pointedly ignored and sped up briefly. They'd be soon entering the park near his house. He was thinking about stopping there, hoping Shinzo would go his way. Izuku didn't want to show him his home. Why did he always end up going home with someone? Was he picking up strays? And you? He glanced at Shinzo, who bit his lip. He felt a little bad. Maybe he'd gone and made the guy uncomfortable. He knew nothing about making friends, although he wasn't intending to become one with this guy, but who knew how the night would go. Izuku glanced at Shinzo, who was biting his lip briefly before taking a deep breath. Brainwashing, he mumbled. It allows me to control a person after they answer a question, I mean. Izuku felt his mind come to a screeching halt, rewinding and burst into questions that was so interesting and so dangerous. Izuku briefly realized that Shinzo hadn't tried to brainwash him the whole time they talked, even though only a few sentences, but still. He could have totally done it, gotten Izuku to tell him anything about his quirk, about if its quirk worked like that. Before he could stop himself, he grabbed Shinzo's hand and squealed, "That's so cool!" He startled the poor guy, who looked shocked and mildly amused at Izuku. Yeah? He weakly added, and Izuku nodded. I have no idea. Mind control? I have no idea. Mind controlling quirks are pretty uncommon, but something that allows one to control other human beings? Now that's rare as fuck. He let go of Shinzo's and cleared his throat. Sorry, I got excited. I just really like quirks. He felt embarrassed. Getting outwardly excited about quirks was something Izuku suppressed over time, but it had slipped out. It's fine. I don't really hear many say my quirk is, well, cool. Izuku finished barely above a whisper, and Izuku understood. That kind of quirk wouldn't be perceived well by people. It would be called villainous quirk. People would think Shinzo would be a bad guy because he could control people if he wished to. Izuku wasn't sure what kind of bullying it would cause, but knowing his bullies at school, they'd probably stick to verbal abuse rather than get hands-on. Izuku didn't have much to control them. After all through it would prove their point somewhat. Well, it is, so there you go. Izuku cleared his throat and crossed the street nearing the park. He kind of wanted to ask some questions, but he held off. It was weird to do that. Everyone told him it was, so he suppressed himself for now. He remembers too many times Kachan had beaten him black and blue for showing interest in other quirks, because in his words it was freaky, downright weird, and in a way it was. Izuku could see that, but come on, it was just a few questions. He didn't ask people's permission beforehand. Always did. He ran his hand through his hair again, barely damp now. He wondered if he'd get sick like this, but ignored the thought and turned to Shinzo, open mouth, a question rolling on the tip of his tongue. What are we doing here? Izuku startled, his hands grasping around the knife in his pocket, and rolled around. Shinzo let out a yelp, instead of stumbling on his feet, and yeah, no, the guy definitely wasn't familiar to the late-night walks. Aizawa? Izuku blinked at the man standing in front of them. Eraserhead in all of his glory, Shinzo let out a squeak, but Izuku paid him no mind. Are you stalking me? Izuku narrowed his eyes at the man who met his stare. They silently watched each other until Shinzo briefly cleared his throat. Aizawa snapped at him. What are you doing out of night, problem child? His gaze returned back to Izuku. Izuku sighed. Why were people following him? Because I like to walk around at night. He flashed a smile at the hero, but it was very much unconvincing as his smile went. I wasn't good at making myself. He wasn't good at making himself seem happy. With blood on your clothes? The hero asked, gaze flashing Izuku's hoodie that he was wearing. Izuku immediately glanced and see a red stain in the front pocket. The red in a strange contrast of his gray hoodie. Shit. He hadn't realized he got blood on himself. He glanced briefly at Shinzo, wondering why the guy hadn't said anything, but Shinzo looked pale instead, and it seemed a ghost. It's ketchup? Izuku tried, but he winced when Izuku only sighed, and it didn't work. What did you get out of now, problem child? He walked closer, towering over the both of them. Izuku panicked. What should he tell? Lie? Of course. He was going to lie. But what? Did I accidentally cut his arm? Or happen to fall down and fall in a pool of blood? But that wasn't his own. That was dumb. He helped me with the cut on my arm, Shinzo added, from the side. Izuku's eyes snapped at the guy, who looked a little less pale than before, showing his bandaged arm. Izuku thanked the god for whoever got those bandages on Shinzo. And you are? Aizawa asked instead, narrowing his eyes. Izuku knew the hero was analyzing and gathering information. Izuku could hear gears turning his head. Midoriya's friend. Shinzo Hitoshi? It made it sound like a question, and Izuku knew Aizawa didn't believe them, but the fall of his shoulder, he gave a trying question and turned back to Izuku. This better be the last time I catch you wandering around at night. He hissed out, and Izuku frowned. You're not my dad or anything, Izuku said. He understood that the hero might be worried, but he could do whatever he wanted. Get home. He gently pointed Izuku's head in the direction of his house, adding a harsh, you too, Shinzo, and disappearing into the showers. That was weird. Ugh. Izuku rubbed his head and shoved. The shove was soft, but the man still had a heavy hand. You know, Eraserhead? Shinzo broke the silence and had settled over them and looked at Izuku and wondered. Yeah. He tried looking back. Can't believe the first time I'm meeting my hero and I'm getting scolded by him. Shinzo whined like a full-on whining and squeaking sound and all. Izuku couldn't help but break into a fit of laughter. Maybe he'd never had a friend before, but this felt like something he could work with. Scratch that. He didn't want to make friends? No, well, he had so many questions to ask Shinzo about his quirks before he could let the guy go. Maybe friendship isn't the right word, but Izuku knew something was building, and he wasn't against it. Perhaps for once he could indulge himself, but the fleeting thought that he would get Shinzo killed still flared. He wasn't safe to be around, but Shinzo seemed to warm his way under his skin before he realized maybe this once he could let him. He would let him. Well, that was the end of chapter 3. I don't know if I said the title of the chapter, but it's called The Many Meanings of Sleep Deprived. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I really like how he met Shinzo. I'm kind of curious why Shinzo's on the street. I have a few, ideas, but Anyway, make sure to hydrate and take care of yourself, huns. I love you and have a good night, day, evening, whenever it is. Just have a wonderful day. Mwah. Bye!